What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video in our tag mixer series. In the last video, we went ahead and created a custom post for our source keys, and now we need a place to actually set those in the front end before we get to our packages page. And hey, if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe, will you? And anyway, back to it. So I'm going to do something I did last time in my last plugin building series, which was I leaned on Bootstrap quite a bit. I'm going to do that here too, so that way it's easy for people to follow along, because I'm really trying to teach you how to be a compiler, even more than a coder, because you'll find that compiling is much easier, because other people have already gone way ahead of you and done hard stuff, and it's a lot of times easier to write it than have to write it from scratch. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open a partial inside of our admin, since we're on the back end, partials, and we're in our genset page. And so here we are, where all those loaders and everything are. And now what we're going to do is head to the bottom, because I want to actually post that underneath here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break a couple lines here. Let's throw in a horizontal rule. So give ourselves just a little bit of space. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab a Jumbotron. I went and pulled this up on Get Bootstrap by just typing in Bootstrap Jumbotron, even on Google. It's really easy to get to this stuff. We're just going to paste that in. Now, if we go take a look at it, obviously I have Bootstrap called into here, so you're just going to see a horizontal rule line and Bootstrap. And another Jumbotron. Perfect. All right, but with the Jumbotron, I really don't want it to be full width. I think in this case, I just want to give it a width of about 60%. Once again, don't be afraid, I'm doing inline styling. It's not a big deal. I'm going to set the max width on this to, I think, maybe like 60%. I'm also going to get rid of all the center stuff and just go for the H1. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that. And it should just be about 60% wide. And we're good to go. But it is left aligned, and I do actually want this center aligned. But we'll take care of that in the end. All right, so what we're going to do in here is we're going to actually jump in and create our H1, and then we're going to do a new paragraph and write in some stuff about what this is going to do, because this is actually where, like I said, where we're creating our source keys portion. So, and actually, you know what? I might go ahead and just do a center as well. I know I can do this, once again, for people who are sticklers about HTML. I know I can do this with margin and all that, you know, but I'm not. I'm just going to do it this way, because it works for what I'm trying to accomplish here. So the first thing is up here, if you remember, we actually called in Google Font on this page, and the, let's see, the font for right here, the style for it is right here, sans serif. We're going to go ahead and copy that, because I actually want that in my new H1, and I don't think I want this as an H1. I really think I want this as an H2. So let's go ahead and drop that as our H2. And then I'm actually going to paste this in, and there we go. Now we have the font. And let's go ahead and call this Tag Mixer Source Keys. That's good. And then what I want to do is create a paragraph. I'm not sure. Once again, I keep forgetting to use Emmet. If you just hit P and then hit Tab, it will create the paragraph for you. And I'm also going to inline style this as well. I'm going to push its font size, I think up to like, I don't know, 20 pixels or something. I want people to be able to read it. And then let's type in, let's see, I might actually skip the part where I type this in so it goes faster for you guys. Okay, so there's what I typed in. Let's see. This section allows you to set up the tag mixer source keys, which can be selected when you are setting up your package sets. When assigning a package set with a source key, that package will only edit elements if it has a corresponding tag mix key equals setting matching the source key. So that's what's going to be in the URL, tag mix key equals, and if it equals FB or like Facebook, for example, or something, it will then activate the styling. And it doesn't have to have it. It will be optional, but it's something that we can do. So let's go ahead and put a break on that. All right, now we're ready to head back to Bootstrap, and I actually want to just go ahead and grab forms. Once again, I'm doing this so you guys can follow it versus just like, oh, here I have a form that I randomly got. So let's grab this form again. We're going to start with the Old Faithful here. Seems to be like the one I use every time. And let's go ahead and tab it in a little bit so that we stay organized. Perfect. Now the thing is, I'm going to go ahead and start with that email address box, because if you look back here, there's a couple of controls in this. There's a drop down, actually we're not going to use it, we're going to use the select, and then we're going to get rid of these other ones. So I want to get rid of, keep the form tags, but you want to get rid of these two form groups, and you want to get rid of the email form group. And now we have a new form that we can start modifying on that will fit what we are trying to do. Still don't think it's tabbed in enough, or something's going on with this one down here. That's fine. All right, and these options we're also going to get rid of as well, at least back to option 1, and we're going to go over that in a second because we're going to programmatically bring that in. Okay, so now we have a little form we can start modifying on. And as you recall, in order to save this form to the database, and actually this is being saved as a custom post type, not necessarily as a setting. It'd be adding a post type. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to make it refresh to this page, similarly to how we did it in our other one when we were saving settings in our YouTube tutorial. We're going to make it come back to this page and send a get variable, and then we're going to be able to add it to the database based on a get variable, and that will help us out quite a bit. So at this point I'm not going to focus on the form tag itself. I want to focus on building it, and then we'll come back to the top. So we're going to call the first control here, we know it's a type drop down, and so we're going to call this existing source keys, and this will contain our existing source keys. They're going to be programmatically loaded in. That is the ID. That also needs to be the name, so we can send that through as a get variable. And then in our options, we're going to go ahead and start setting these up as well. But we're going to do something here a little bit different, which is we're going to actually pull this in from a PHP, just like this. And here's what we're going to say. Gather the existing source keys. Because we can actually delete these. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a way to delete these. And so here's the thing. Much like in our last tutorial where we were calling in posts, we're going to do that exactly here, even though we don't have any yet. So we start that by saying source keys equals, and we're going to be using the get posts part of WordPress, and that's going to want an array from us. So let's give ourselves a little space, and then we're going to open up an array. And now what we're going to do is give it a couple of parameters for, well, this is backwards to start. There we go. And then we're going to give it a couple of parameters, which is the post type and the count. So the first one we're going to call is we're going to say post type. And what do you think this is going to be? What do you think? That's right. It's the name of the custom post that we set back in our admin right here. That's what we want in the last video. Now it's going to call that in. And then the other thing it's going to ask for is number posts. Okay, and this is telling it how many posts we want it to get. And in this case, we're just going to say 3,000. You can do whatever you want, and you can leave it empty as well. I just always like to give it a value, but you can make it whatever you want. 5,000, 10,000, 1, 2, 3, doesn't really matter. So now we have a new array that's going to contain any posts that we have that are currently set up source keys. Well, we know that we don't have any because we haven't saved any and we haven't done any metadata and nothing at this point. So here's what we're going to do. Check to see how many we have. And as you know, we have 0. So we say if, open it up, and then come back and say source keys. And we're going to say, here's how we can easily do this. We can say if the count, we're going to wrap this up inside that and say if the count equals 0. We have no posts, do we? So here's what we're going to echo. We're going to echo an option because remember, we're inside of that select. You see the tags around us? It says select, and then the bottom is closing the select. So we can actually open and close options in here, can't we? So we just created an option inside here that we're echoing. An option is going to say no source keys created. Now, what do you think we could do here once we have source keys? We're going to be able to come back here and we're just setting ourselves up for the next part of this series, which is we're going to make an else right here once we have some posts, and then it's going to output all of the values of the posts as selectable options. Now, why is it doing that? So we can delete them from the database. That's why. So at this point, if we go back and we refresh this page, we're going to have a little bit of stuff down here changed. All right, looks a little bit better. And you're going to see this text is a little big, actually. I probably would not make it 20 pixels upon looking at it again. I'd probably push it down to like 16. Because that's a little big. Right, that's better. So now we have it still says example select. Let's see, let's go ahead and change that to source keys. Okay, so now we have our source keys, and as you can see, look what it has as its option. See that? Because there are no source keys created. There isn't any, so our database is empty. It has no source keys. But at least we have a section where we're now creating our new source key parameter. So what we need to do now is add a button to delete them. And once again, I'm going to lean on Bootstrap, and I'm going to lean on the Bootstrap buttons. And let's go for this large button. Large, and then we're also going to, not button primary, we're actually going to make it warning, I think, or alert. So now what we have to do is underneath this select, we have to create a input, and we have to make it a type submit so we can submit this form with it. And in this particular case, we're going to say, let's see, the class is going to equal button primary. See, I don't really want it primary though. I want, how about warning? That's just another Bootstrap class for this. And then the value of it is going to be delete this source key. All right, let's see what we got. Actually, let's add another break here. That should about do us in for our setup for our graphics side. Okay, things are looking pretty good. Wouldn't you say? This isn't really too bad at all. We now have a place where we can start loading in our keys once we set them, but guess what? We don't have a place to actually put them in, do we? And so now what we need to do is quickly create a spot to put them in. And we're not going to do any of the programming for how we're going to refresh the page on it. That'll be in the next one, but this one we're going to finish our graphics part. So now what we need to do is drop below this form, and I'm actually going to just do a couple of breaks here, like one, and then let's go for a paragraph. And let's say style, go to font size. Again, we're just going to push this up to like 26 pixels, and then we're just going to say or, because we want to give them the ability. This is just kind of a different way to do it. We're going to say or, and then we're going to say in another paragraph, and I also want to give this the style with this that as well, add a new source key, tag mixer source key. All right, not too bad. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to actually open up another form. And the reason why we're doing this is because we need to be able to refresh it to this page to add the new source. When the person adds the name of the source key and adds its value, we need to be able to refresh to this page and then add those to the database as a custom post and then display it inside of here. So that's what we're going to do now. And that's pretty easy for us to do as well. If we head back to Bootstrap and we head back to the forms again, we're going to do what we just did again. We're going to copy from this form here, but we're going to keep the text box, but we're not going to use it as email as they have it. We're actually going to do something a little different. So now we have a form again. Let's get rid of everything except for that right there. We want everything else with the exception of the, okay. So instead of type email, we're just going to do type text. That's the first thing we're going to change. And then we're going to call this something different. So instead of email, we're going to call this tag mix source name. And then over here, all we have to do is just put in source name. And then down here, placeholder, we're going to call this like, like Facebook or something. And then same thing for this here. It's the ID of this. And then also that needs to be the name as well. And now we have a Facebook field. And also, by the way, with this form, we're going to go ahead and just set up its action. It's going to equal nothing at the moment because we're going to refresh to this page. And then the method of this one is going to be post, because we're going to post these variables in and then capture them. But right now it's not going to do anything if we submit it. It's just going to refresh the same page and won't do anything. And then we're going to go ahead and copy this and do it a second time because we need to create another set, and we need to call this tag mixer source key. And this is where we actually set the key, and then we're going to create a generator for this too, so it can help generate keys for us. And once again, we could actually just make it something simple. It's completely up to us. We could say like the key needs to be like FB name. And if that comes in, then it knows that the key is proper, and then it will do whatever. Last thing we need is a submit button, similar to the top, except this one we're going to make success button versus a warning button. Just like that. And then we're going to say add this source key. Okay, and I think that's pretty good. The only thing I think I want to do to separate this form is give it a different Bootstrap class. And I think what we're going to do is give it class, I'm thinking alert, darks, probably fine. If you're wondering where I'm getting these alerts from, by the way, it's back here in their components in the alert, or they're in the alerts, and here's all their pre-made ones. That's where I'm grabbing that from. So let's go back and take a look now. We should be about set up. Yeah, there we go. That doesn't look too bad, except for that button's right on top of it. I would like to push that down a little bit. Let's see if that helps. Like I said, guys, I am really building this real time with you guys, so. Okay, much better. So now we're looking at something that looks a little more like a standardized WordPress plugin. Let's just go ahead and deactivate the plugin for the moment so it's not doing anything. All right, so this is what it would look like when a user first gets into it and it's brand new. So here we have our keys. Nothing is currently created. And then adding a new tag mixer source key. And there's another thing. So now they could say exactly what I just said. Or they both say source name, don't they? So that one says source name, and this one says source key. I think that's going to do it. And they don't really have a lot of space between them either. Let's go ahead and fix that too. All right. Now that's looking pretty good. So now we've set up our basic settings page. I think this is where this video is going to call it, because I think we're maybe already at like 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one here. But as you can see now, we have the master switch from our first video. We have our new custom post created from our last video for handling this source key. And we have a deletion where we can select existing source keys and delete them, and we can actually figure out, we can add all kinds of features here for what to do with them. So this is kind of a wide open thing. Or we can add a new tag mixer source key, and right here you can put in as many source keys and types as you want and add them to your database, and they'll show up here. And then these will be accessible, like I showed in my last little I wouldn't even call it a drawing, like a hand scribble, in our packages page. So when you're creating a new package, it says like, if the source key equals FB name and the keyword equals page one, or the whatever you set as your key term or your incoming term, then what I want to do is this code here. I want to inject this code into my page, and it's like change top image to this, change background color to this, change this, blah, 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 blah. You see where we're going? This is actually going to be a very useful little plugin for, especially for internet marketing in general. But anyway, hey, I think that's where we're going to cut this one off, because now we have this. This will be inside of the GitHub, all of this updated code that you see in here. So you'll be able to play around with this stuff and do with it what you will. And hey, if you guys like this content, subscribe, will you? I'm trying to make these videos as fast as I can and make them interesting, and then always be teaching new stuff. But you guys are going to find that a lot of times just like any programmer, I rely on compiling, and also I lean a lot on stuff that is already written, so I don't have to constantly stand here and write code over and over and over that I've done a million times, because that's not really impressive. What's impressive is having the ideas to build this stuff rather than actually coding it. But anyway, hey, if you guys like it, subscribe, will you? And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one, where we're going to get to actually programming these in, adding, and then these. And then at that point, guys, we're going to be onto the packages page already. So this is going along smoothly. And like I said, once more, hey, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, will you? And I'll see you guys in the next one.